Now, to introduce this young gentleman, I should say young because he's still very young despite all of the success he's had. Let's take a quick look at his UTR profile. And of course, I am speaking of the Aussie, the very, very tough Aussie, Mr. John Millman, one of the most respected gentlemen on the tour. Tremendous work ethic he has. You can see he's the #3 ranked Australian. Lots of great players from down there. Hometown is in Brisbane. Currently the world number 41, but he has been as high as 33 in the world. Had a very impressive 2018, bouncing back after a couple of injuries actually, which I certainly want to get into because coming back from those types of injuries takes a lot of willpower. But without further ado, may I please ask Mr. John Millman to join us. John, thank you very much for joining us, sir.
It's great to be here. I'm in Brisbane right now, and I tell you what, that UTR introduction video had me fired up.
Before we started, you and I talked about matchups and being able to go, 1-against-1.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on being able to compete with another player and still have it sort of count versus two competitors who are playing against each other halfway across the world?
Yeah, look, and I think that's the beauty probably of the UTR system, in that we can create matchups, people of similar standards playing against each other. And I thought that was a great initiative that we did in America. I know I tuned in. I was actually getting ready for the women's final, and I think the weather kind of played its part there, unfortunately, in the final, because I was tuning in. But look, I think it's awesome, and I think that's the reality that we're going to face over the next few months. Obviously, there's aggressive plans to try to get some form of tennis back on the TV from an ATP point of view. But in the meantime, we have to get really creative, and we have to find ways to still have a product of tennis, because this sport is global, and it's a coming together of people that love playing tennis. So the sport is global. People are still interested what's going on out there because the fan base is so massive. So I think initiatives like the UTR tournaments that have been put in place, other small initiatives around the globe, are really changing the way that we're thinking about competitive tennis. School days, post 17, 18 years old. I felt that competitiveness, and I felt as if I didn't want to fall behind the 8 ball. I knew that some of my peers were putting in pretty much full-time professional schedules at that age. And I was getting probably 8 hours on court a week. So I made sure, though, a really conscious effort that those 8 hours were going to be the best 8-hour sessions that anyone's putting in. So I would walk onto the court and I would go, I guess you could say, balls to the walls is what we say here in Australia, which just means 100%, intensity. Even at 30 years old, what I am now, I'm still trying to work on things and still trying to develop areas of my game to try to improve it, because I feel as if I stagnate, tennis is going to go past me. So I'd been recovering from that, and I go to Spain, my real taste for it, and I'm in 128 qualifying draws at a 10,000 future. And I'm looking around and I'm going, all these guys are bloody good. And I guess this is actually where, to put into context, I think this is where, if we had a UTR ranking system back then, I probably wouldn't have, I probably would have been more ready for that, because I found it shell shocking. I found it, I guess I kind of, in Australia, because we're so distant from the rest of the world, I kind of felt that I was maybe a big fish in a very, very small puddle, not even a pond, a puddle. And there was no, let's say, universal, tennis ranking system that could compare me to what's happening in the rest of the world. Because back then I wasn't in the position, I might not have even had the money to. I also wasn't in a position, because I was doing my schooling, to go and expose myself to what's happening in Europe, to what's happening in America, South America, Asia. I hadn't exposed myself to that. So I had no idea or indication as to where my level was on an international basis. We have an Australian ranking. That's what I knew. And so therefore, I think that that's something where a UTR back then would have been unbelievably helpful. Because like you touched on, I have to be a player that plays 27, 28 tournaments a year. I play my best tennis when I'm playing back-to-back tournaments. And you can see that by even my scheduling going into Grand Slams. All the Grand Slams I play, I'm playing the week before. And there's a reason for that. I'm someone who wants to have matches going into the big tournaments. So I'll play Winston-Salem each year. Last year I was playing Lyon the week before French Open, Eastbourne the week before Wimbledon. So I'm playing all these tournaments the week before for a reason, because I believe I'm a player that plays my better tennis when I'm locked in competition and I'm locked in physical battles going into these slams. I want to be battle hardened, as you can say. So injuries are an absolute killer. And it really tests not just your physical resolve, but your mental resolve. Everyone's wired a little bit differently, but I've figured out what brings out the best tennis of me, and being clear on court, showing good body language, controlling the controllables is something that I try to apply. And I feel as if I learnt that early on, what gives myself the best chance to success. And I think that's what everyone has to do. And everyone's is going to be a little bit different. We're all going to have different mantras and different things that we live by and stand for. But that's something for me that, has given me my greatest success.
I don't think you could have said that more eloquently. I couldn't agree more wholeheartedly with everything you've said. And I think the big misconception out there for everyone trying to get better at the game, they're too focused on, oh, I wish I had that big shot, or I wish I could do this like him. As you said, everyone has their own strengths and weaknesses. I'm going with the live Q&As now. Sejal Parekh, he's asked you if there's something you could tell the younger generations as far as advice. I know you've said that things have changed a bit since you were young. If there's a couple things, what could you give them?
Look, I'm going to keep it pretty simple here. First and foremost, it has to come from within. You have to develop a real love for the game. That can't be pushed from the outside. I see a fair bit, parents really pushing their kids to and kind of almost manufacturing the kid's will to be a tennis player. Well, it has to come from within, in my opinion, because at the end of the day, tennis isn't worth it, or your life isn't worth it to go and do something that you don't love. So that'd be first and foremost. The second thing I will say, because this is what tennis is all about, the UTR, tournaments, everything is about competition. You've got to enjoy competition. Otherwise, tennis isn't for you. And there's plenty of people that don't necessarily like being confronted in competition. So learn to enjoy the battle, win or lose. Learn to go out there and really enjoy engaging in a battle, you versus the other person at the other end of the court, and leaving it all out there.